Aurora's journey is proof that being different is not a weakness, it's a gift. From rejection to success, she turned pain into power. But now, we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. We love seeing how far our stories travel. And don't forget, a brand new, inspiring story is coming tomorrow. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss it. See you in the next chapter of another unforgettable journey. She faced the parents who rejected her and left them speechless. The hospital room was eerily silent. The usual excitement that followed the birth of a child was nowhere to be found. Instead, an uncomfortable tension filled the air, as if no one dared to speak. Emily Carter lay in her hospital bed, her body exhausted from labor, but her mind racing with panic. She turned to her husband, Robert, who stood frozen, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. His face was pale, his jaw tight, his eyes locked onto the tiny bundle in the doctor's arms. Dr. Evelyn Harrison, an experienced physician, held the newborn carefully, swaddled in a soft pink blanket. The baby's tiny hands twitched, her curly black hair damp from birth. But what made the parents recoil wasn't her small size or her delicate features. It was something else entirely. The baby's face was swollen, and unusual marks covered her skin. Her tiny fingers were slightly twisted, as if they hadn't developed properly. She didn't look like the perfect child Emily and Robert had imagined. Emily swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. Is our baby okay? Dr. Evelyn gave a reassuring smile, though even she seemed unsure of how to ease their fears. She's perfectly healthy, she said. She just looks a little different. But Emily and Robert weren't listening. They were still staring at their daughter, their faces twisted in shock and disbelief. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. They had planned everything. The nursery painted in soft pastel colors, the baby shower filled with friends and laughter, the matching outfits for their perfect little girl. But now, all those dreams shattered before their eyes. As the hours passed, reality sank in. When it was time for Emily to be discharged, she barely spoke. Robert pushed the stroller through the hospital doors, but instead of pride, his expression was one of unease. Emily walked beside him, stiff and detached, as if she was carrying a burden rather than a child. Inside their home, the once cheerful nursery felt cold. Emily placed the baby in her crib without a word. Robert stood near the doorway, hands shoved into his pockets, avoiding eye contact. Finally, Emily broke the silence. "What are we going to do?" she whispered. Robert shook his head. "I don't know." Neither of them said what they were really thinking. They couldn't love her. They didn't want to keep her. And in just 3 days, they would make a decision that would change everything. 3 nights later, the Carter household was silent. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the baby monitor. The soft sound of breathing came through the speaker, but it only made her chest feel heavier. She should have felt love, warmth, something, but she didn't. Robert stood by the window, looking out at the quiet suburban street. The decision weighed on him, but he knew there was no other way. They had talked about it in hushed voices, avoiding the truth for as long as they could. But now, it was time. Without a word, Emily rose and wrapped the baby in a soft blanket, one they had bought long before she was born, back when they still felt excitement. As she cradled the tiny girl in her arms, she felt nothing. No bond, no connection, just an emptiness she couldn't explain. Robert grabbed the car keys. "Let's go." The drive was long, though the orphanage wasn't far, just 20 miles away, tucked between quiet neighborhoods and empty roads. The radio played softly, but neither of them spoke. Emily's grip on the baby tightened slightly, a flicker of hesitation flashing across her face. "What if we?" she started, but Robert cut her off. "We already decided," he said, his voice firm. "This is what's best." She nodded, swallowing back the lump in her throat. The orphanage loomed in the darkness, its old brick walls barely visible under the dim streetlights. Robert parked a short distance away, keeping the engine running. Emily took a deep breath, then opened the door. The cold air hit her like a slap. She walked quickly to the front gate, her heart pounding in her chest. She looked down at the baby, so small, so unaware of what was happening. For the first time, guilt crept in. She hesitated. But then she pulled a small note from her pocket and placed it beside the baby. The words were short, simple. "We cannot take care of her. Please find her a good home." Without another glance, Emily turned and hurried back to the car. She didn't look back. As they drove away, the baby lay there, wrapped in the blanket, her tiny fingers twitching in the night air. Emily and Robert thought they were leaving behind a burden. What they didn't know was that the little girl they abandoned would grow up to become someone truly extraordinary. The night air was cold, and the baby's soft cries echoed through the empty streets. Inside the orphanage, the sound barely reached the ears of Linda Harrison, a caretaker in her early 50s. She had seen many abandoned children in her years working here, but something about this night felt different. When she opened the front door and looked down, her breath caught in her throat. A tiny baby, wrapped in a delicate pink blanket, lay at the orphanage gate. Her face was round, her tiny fists curled up near her chest, but what stood out were the unusual marks on her skin and the way her hands twisted slightly. Linda's heart ached. Gently, she scooped the child into her arms. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered. "Who could leave you out here like this?" She carried the baby inside, warming her cold body against her chest. The other caretakers gathered around, their eyes filled with pity. "There was a note," one of them said, handing Linda the small slip of paper. "We cannot take care of her. Please find her a good home." Linda tightened her grip on the baby. They hadn't even given her a name. For the next few weeks, the little girl grew stronger, but her life at the orphanage wasn't easy. The other children whispered about her, pointing at the marks on her skin and the way her fingers curled differently from theirs. Some even refused to play with her. "She's weird," a boy sneered one afternoon, watching her struggle to hold a spoon. "Why does she look like that?" The words stung, but Linda refused to let the child be defined by cruelty. "You shine brighter than any star," she told the baby as she rocked her to sleep, "and you deserve a name just as special." And so she named her Aurora, after the breathtaking colors of the Northern Lights. Aurora grew up with a quiet strength. She learned to ignore the whispers and push through the stares. But deep inside, she longed to prove that she was more than the girl left at the orphanage gate. And one day, she would. Aurora refused to be defined by the whispers. While other children at the orphanage played tag or ran around the yard, she sat quietly, her small hands working carefully with scraps of paper, molding shapes out of anything she could find. Her fingers, though different, were strong. They weren't a weakness, they were tools, and she was determined to use them. At first, her creations were simple, lumpy figures, uneven shapes. But she didn't stop. While the other kids laughed and dismissed her, she practiced. Day after day, she sculpted, shaping tiny figures from leftover clay, her hands pressing, twisting, creating. By the time she turned 10, her work was stunning. One afternoon, while Linda cleaned up the dining hall, she noticed Aurora sitting on the floor, carefully molding a small, delicate bird out of clay. The details were perfect. The wings spread as if ready to take flight, every feather carved with precision. Linda knelt beside her, awe filling her voice. "Aurora, this is incredible." Aurora looked up, unsure. No one had ever praised her work before. Before she could respond, a voice interrupted. "My goodness." They turned to see a woman standing in the doorway, Lisa Donovan, the owner of an art gallery in New York City. She had come to the orphanage to look at paintings donated by volunteers. But now, her eyes were locked on Aurora's sculpture. Lisa crouched down, studying the clay bird with admiration. "Did you make this?" Aurora hesitated, then nodded. Lisa's expression softened. "Your art tells a story, Aurora, a powerful one." She stood, turning to Linda. "I'd love to feature her work in my gallery." Linda's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Absolutely," Lisa said. "The world needs to see this." The news spread through the orphanage like wildfire. Aurora, the girl once mocked and overlooked, was about to have her very first art exhibition. For the first time in her life, she felt something new. Pride. And as she stood in front of her sculptures, watching people admire them, she realized something else. She wasn't just proving others wrong. She was proving herself right. Aurora's first art exhibition was a dream come true. The gallery was filled with bright lights, elegant guests, and walls lined with her sculptures. People murmured in admiration, pointing at the unique shapes she had molded. Each piece told a story of struggle, of resilience, of beauty in imperfection. She stood beside Lisa Donovan, the woman who had given her this chance, feeling a strange mix of excitement and disbelief. Just years ago, she was the girl no one wanted to play with, the child abandoned at an orphanage gate. Now, people wanted to know her story. Then, something even more unexpected happened. A tall woman with short purple hair approached her, smiling warmly. Aurora, she said, I'm Jasmine Turner. I work with a top modeling agency. Aurora blinked in confusion. Modeling? Jasmine nodded. We're looking for models who redefine beauty. You have something special. Would you be interested? Aurora's heart pounded. She had never imagined herself as a model. The world had spent years telling her she wasn't beautiful. And yet, here was someone telling her otherwise. She took a deep breath. I'll do my best. From that moment on, her life changed forever. She wasn't just an artist anymore. Soon she was walking down fashion runways in Los Angeles, New York, and Paris. Photographers captured her unique look, magazines featured her on their covers, and thousands of people who had once felt different saw themselves in her. But as she scrolled through online comments one night, she saw one that hit her like a punch to the gut. Anyone who abandons a child like that must be heartless. Aurora stared at the words, feeling a deep ache in her chest. She had always known she was abandoned, but seeing it in writing made it real in a way she had never felt before. She had to find the truth. With Linda's help, she hired a private investigator, Jack Monroe, a man known for solving the toughest cases. It wasn't easy, but after weeks of searching, he found them. Emily and Robert Carter. Aurora stood in front of their house, her heart pounding. She had once been the child they threw away. Now she was about to knock on their door. Aurora's story is a powerful reminder that being different is not a weakness. It's a strength. From being abandoned as a baby to becoming a world-renowned artist and model, she proved that resilience and self-love can overcome even the deepest scars of rejection. But now, we want to hear from you. What part of Aurora's journey impacted you the most? Was it the way she refused to let others define her? Her incredible talent in art? Or the moment she faced the parents who once left her behind? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever felt judged because of how you look, where you come from, or something that makes you unique? How did you overcome it? Your story might inspire someone else going through the same struggle. And before you go, tell us where you're watching from. It's incredible to see this community grow all over the world. Don't forget, there's a brand new story coming tomorrow. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an inspiring journey like this one. Thank you for being part of our storytelling family.